Living here on 100.5 FM CFRO in Vancouver. My name is Marc Caron, and today I'm really excited to introduce our guest today. I had the opportunity to read her recent book, and I have to say, for me, it was fantastic. Her name is Selina Maitreya. She is a lecturer, author, and spiritual teacher. She's the creator of the Clarion Call, an online conference of spiritual teachers, and she is a founding member of the Manhattan Holistic Chamber of Commerce and a past board member of the Boston Theosophical Society. She lives in Arlington, Massachusetts, and right now she's really sharing a radical process for self-transformation. And Selina explores how to recognize and transform the difficulties and challenges that one would experience into opportunities to find deeper peace. She shares practical methods, exercises, and actions to help you access and raise your inner vibration and build the foundation for a truly abundant life. I want to welcome to the program Selina. It's just a pleasure to have you with us today. And I really enjoyed your book, Raise Your
Thank you.
Frequency, Transform Your Life. I found it very, very relatable. So let's dive into, how we can change our life, how we can raise our frequency, and really what that's all about in your mission for the world.
Well, thank you, Mark. It's a true pleasure to be here. And I want to buy that book. It sounds like a really good book. Wait a second, I wrote the book. No, joking aside, I'm really very grateful to be here and very excited to have an opportunity to share the practices and wisdom that the book brings to folks who want to learn how to use difficulty as a transformational tool.
Beautiful. Well, your story, I found it quite interesting and relatable because we have very many common interests and experiences, especially when you talk about oneness and you talk about conditioning and the practical tools that are in here. I found, from where I'm at in my life today, as I was reading it, there was things that I was like, oh, okay. It kind of brought me back to my practice. And I found it very refreshing because it was an easy read and it was easily understandable. So maybe you can start by telling us a little bit more about yourself, your story, how you kind of became a spiritual teacher and all the work that you're doing that led to this book.
Well, first of all, I'm so excited to hear that you found the book a very easy read and that it spoke to you as to where you are in your life right now. That's golden, and that makes me so happy. So thank you for sharing that. My name, Selina Maitreya, was given to me when I was 16 years old. And this symbol that I wear was also given to me then because it's the symbol for oneness. And oneness is the energy of love that is within us all. We're all different manifestations. We have lots of different aspects of who we are, from our physical body to our brain, to our emotional body, our low frequency energy fields. But it's that energy of love that we all share. That's the oneness. And that's what this symbol stands for. So, Mark, when I was 16 years old, I came from a really lovely family, but my lovely family turned into a train wreck at a certain point that never seemed to come out of that. And it was during that time that my family shifted so dramatically that I was introduced to a whole other paradigm of life called spiritual work. And I was 14 years old. When I was 16 years old, I was introduced to my teacher who taught me the initial wisdom of the spiritual world from the Kabbalistic tradition. And I went on with my life and retained a very connection to source. Through my 20s, it was sex, drugs, and rock and roll with my first husband, which was a lot of fun. But I kind of put spirituality on the shelf a little bit. And then when I chose to become sober at 33, went into therapy. I had a lot to work out. I was a very unformed person. And I really wanted to connect to spirituality in a different way. So in my 30s, I was introduced, my late 30s, early 40s, I was introduced through the work I was doing as a consultant to photographers around the world. I was introduced to a new spiritual teacher. And I've been working with her for 26 years now. And through that work, I learned how to embody my spiritual values and use them in my daily life. The third time meeting with this teacher, the Reverend Janice Hope Gorman, Spirit started to channel through me. And I didn't know what was happening, but with her guidance, I learned how to cultivate that relationship and how to walk in the third dimensional world in integrity so that I could continue to receive from the divine. Became a mom. I had 2 kids. I got divorced. I was the not sole provider, but the major provider for my kids for 15 years while they were growing up. And I very much wanted to be a teacher because my spiritual life had blossomed, it had deepened, but I was unable to because my responsibilities to my kids, and I had a very successful consulting business for photographers, as I had said. So Spirit kept saying, when your kids are older, you can go out there and do this work. But I chose to also have meditation groups in my house, and I chose to give lectures at spiritual groups around, but I was never able to full-time move into that. 2013, Spirit said, it's time to sell your house. My kids were grown. They were with the women they're now married to. And so I made plans to sell our homestead and move to New York City, where the idea was that I was going to retire from consulting. I'd go out and maybe find my next romantic relationship, and I'd be able to be a teacher full time. And everything was going to plan. But 2 days before closing on my house, I was driving to it for the very last time to clean it. And I had an Audi convertible, a sports car. And on the way there, a woman ran a red light with a van and hit my car in the driver door 70 miles an hour. And my life was dramatically changed. So that's the history of Selina and the work before the book. So shall I continue a little bit and tell you how the book came, or shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. I just, there's so much there that I think is, interesting because, life happens for us, not to us, and I think that that's just a belief system I've adopted over the years. And when you talk about your car accident and Spirit talking, and you talk about family, I think it's for especially people in the spiritual world, and people who are on that path, they always say, you think you're all awakened and stuff, go spend some time with your family.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, we can move forward because I think the book, when we're talking about raising your frequency, we talk about everything as a frequency, and many people, especially in our community, know and agree with that. So how did your spiritual work then transform into this book? Because I know in reading the book and knowing a bit about your story there, it took quite some time for you to recover from that accident.
Well, what's so fascinating to me, and I think to anybody who's on a spiritual path, is that when the woman hit my car, I was immediately knocked out on impact, and the car lit up. My experience was I was dying, that the car was filled with light, and I thought I was dying. So I thanked the gods for a wonderful life. I've had a spectacular life, very difficult, very joyous, amazing things, like really crazy, wonderful life. But I didn't die. I came back into my body, but Spirit was very clear that this wasn't an accident. This was an event that they created. And they told me they'd be taking me out of my life, that I'd leave the car without a broken bone or a bruise, and I didn't need that distraction, but that they were going to take me out of my life and restructure my energy systems so that I could be the teacher I had been asking to be for years. And my job was to surrender, that they had everything taken care of. It wouldn't be easy, but they had everything taken care of. And because of all the work I had done up to that point, I surrendered. And that's a whole other interview, a whole other podcast interview. But what happened is I moved to New York City, and for the first 5 years, I was in very rough shape. Taking a shower was a big event. When you have a brain injury, you're completely shut down. You're completely exhausted. Light, sound, are overwhelming. And all of what I learned is all of the things that we now do, even getting up from a chair and going into the kitchen to get a glass of water, really requires several steps. And when you have a brain injury, you're not sure what to do and how that works. So there was a day where I actually found myself standing in my kitchen with a frying pan and an egg, knowing that they do something together, but I didn't know what. And I couldn't hold a conversation for more than 15 or 20 minutes without great effort. And that went on for quite some time. A year into that, Spirit said to me, we're giving you a book. And I had been an author of 2 books for the other career I was in. I've been published twice. And I knew what writing a book took. And I knew that, my gosh, I have no organizational skills right now. I can't remember things. I couldn't type. So I didn't understand what to do. So they instructed me to record. They downloaded they downloaded recordings for 4 years that I put into my phone before I could type. And 2 years after that, 4 years later, for 2 years, when I was able to type, I turned the words into a manuscript. I was then moved because I no longer planned my life from the car event when I surrendered. Part of surrendering is having the capacity to be open to source and hear their direction. And then I engaged the brain to determine what in the 3rd dimensional world I should put into place to meet the divine's direction. So they moved me 6 times in 8 years. And one of the times was to Woodstock, New York. And in the most magical experience unbelievable experience that moved me to Woodstock. And within 3 days of just getting to know Woodstock, I met the editor for the book. So everything from the fact that the book was given to me a year into a severe brain injury, to how the book landed it in our traditions is beyond. What basically happened is that as I was healing, the book was being written. So I was given a book that teaches people how to respond from love to life's difficulties when I was going through my life's most challenging time, and responding completely from love. And I still get goosebumps thinking of that. It's just an amazing gift for not only me, but now for other people who can utilize the material in the book and help them out.
Beautiful. And, based on that, I wore my theme shirt today.
I
Love is my
love
new
that.
normal. And because I think, there's an innate part of being human that is about getting to source of love. And, you mentioned it in your book, and you kind of started with that I found very relatable, was the conditioning. As you're talking about, the 3D world versus, the spiritual side of things, and thinking about order and sequence and doing everything right because that's how we're told we need to be doing things, versus allowing ourselves to go with the flow, what I would kind of consider nature. If we look at nature, the bears and the eagles and the fish, they're living their life. They're not all of a sudden scheduling dinner for 5 o'clock or going through a drive-through, or they're not scheduling things in that same way that we would be in our world.
Mm-hmm.
that we live in that sense. And I think the surrender part for me, really, I can really relate to. And through my practice and journey, that was kind of one of the questions our spiritual teacher says: are you ready to give everything up? And if you're not, as in your case, Spirit did something happened that puts you in a place to kind of let go of everything, to rebuild and learn that it's okay to go with the flow.
And wasn't it the perfect time in my life, because I had just raised my boys for 15 years as a single parent. I left the home and the house that was bought with financing when my mom passed on. And so there's my mom passing on and us buying the house and buying this house that raises these boys. And I wanted a family so bad. And I loved my home, and I loved my boys, and I loved the work. And selling the house was the perfect thing to do at the perfect time. And it happened well, and I'm moving to New York to start this new life. So there I land in New York, knowing a few people, but not a lot. And I don't have the home I lived in. I don't have, everything was new. That's the whole point. Everything was new. So it was a very gentle way if I had to. The experience wasn't gentle, but it was a gentle way if I had to go through that. And I love the fact that Spirit knew I had had enough work behind me. I've never read the Bible through. I would never say I had, because I haven't, but I do remember certain truths. And the truth that I think is so appropriate here, and I'll change the language a little bit, is that oneness never gives us anything that we're not ready for. And I clearly, the divine knew that I had really done the work of I'll say the lower university work of making my life my practice, of embodying spiritual beliefs in my daily life. And now I was being given the graduate work to move forward and see what that looked like when everything is taken away from you. Because everything was taken away from me. All my plans were gone. And so I was that bear in the woods, if you will, where there were no more plans because nothing could be facilitated. I had no way of working. I had no understanding of when I'd be better. Neurologists give you a year, and where you are after a year, that's it. And I was in very rough shape. I hadn't improved at all in a year. It took 5 years to improve. And so I had no idea if I'd ever make money again, what I was going to do. So in the third dimensional world, everything was completely chaotic. And my saving grace was my relationship with the divine. And that was the stability that I had.
Beautiful. And I think it's so important to understand that, when we talk about our relationship with the divine, God, whatever we want to refer to her as, I think it's, important to realize that healing and, the body and our consciousness. I remember there's a Buddhist teacher, he had said, it's not these medicines that heal, whether, because we were talking psychedelics at the time, we're not talking about all these things that are actually healing. It's our consciousness. When we expand our consciousness and we open it up to the divine and universal consciousness, that's when healing happens, and can happen spontaneously, because we have that ability within our spiritual selves. And I think that as we start, I want to dive into some of your book and some of the principles, because it's that conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
You talk so much about conditioning and the way that we get entrenched in our beliefs,
Mm-hmm.
and how to break those patterns and bring in new ones. And you've got some great tools in your book that I found very beautifully easy to use. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how, from the conditioning to the spiritual practice to all of these things, and that self-realization that needs to happen to become aware of what's going on for us.
Well, that's a lot. So let's dig in. So first of all, when we talk about conditioning, I want to share a little bit of an understanding of who we think we are and my experience of who we actually are, so that we can understand how the conditioning affects us. So we always refer to ourselves as me or I, a one-dimensional being, and we're not. As I was sharing a little bit earlier, we're a physical body, physical brain, emotional body, personality, history in the body. We have all these moving parts. When we're born, and Source has said to me, you might find this interesting, Mark, Source had said to me a long time ago that the reason the soul comes into a body is because in oneness, which I've had an experience with in being in the field when I was knocked out, and afterwards for 5 years, just by closing my eyes, I was back into oneness. In oneness, there's no physicality, obviously. There's no form. Nothing can change because nothing is. There is nothing, and nothing is everything there. So the soul comes into the physicality to tweak, to perfect, to create a shift of some sort. And when it comes into the body, then we breathe life. The physical, they have also said that the soul, the breath is the physical expression of the soul. So when the breath comes into the body and we're born as infants. And as infants, before we have the use of language, whatever that language is of our family or culture, we have the language of vibration, because a baby communicates through sound, through crying, through making noises, asking for attention, trying to express that it needs. So we already have this language of vibration. And as we come into bodies, as we are babies, we also use that frequency, that language of frequency, to alert people, to let them know that we need something. And what do? We cry. So fear is so grounded in us from the beginning. Then we get older and our family conditioning, our family has certain ideas and practices and values and judgments that are given to us, our society does. And generally, much of that is you are your brain, you are your emotions, so that the aspects of our multidimensionality that are brought to our attention and told are our tools are our brain and in our emotional body. We're never taught about frequency. We're not taught about the frequency in our body, which science already continues to show us through EKGs and EEGs. And at the end of life, there's a monitor. And when it bleeps, we're no longer in the body. So the conditioning starts at a very early age, and it's all around letting us know and telling us that we are our brain and we are our emotions. And we're not told that we have choice. We're not told that we can change. We're not told that we're anything beyond our brains. So when people come to a place, whether they're teenagers as I was, and I don't know how old you were, Mark, when you came, where were you in that timeline of coming into spiritual awakening?
Well, I've always, I was raised Catholic, is what I would say. I wasn't born that way. I was raised that way. And, I always felt a connection. I always had this kind of innate feeling, though I had never had any kind of spiritual experience through the
Mm.
Catholic Church. And I'll never forget, it was 2007. So I would have been 40 years old.
Mm.
And it was, I went to an event, it was a Tony Robbins thing. I was a big student, one of my favorite teachers. And I finally decided to go to an event live in person. Well, he told this story about healing where nobody could heal his wife. And he brought this experience, and it was the most profound shift and experience of spirit that I
Mm.
have ever had. And then, it began a whole new journey for me. But it was, so I was about 40 when that happened. And it was an incredible how 30 minutes changed my life.
Yeah. And it's what you did with it afterwards as well. So whether you're 14, 16 as I was, or 40 when you were, or anywhere in between, when we come to the awareness that there's more, that there's not just what we've been told, you do this, you can't really do much about your brain. And then of course there's the whole piece of the New Age movement that espouses change your thinking, change your life. And that becomes really unbelievable for people. Oh my God, I can think differently. If I think differently, I can change my life. What I've learned about that, which is helpful, is that it's the vibration that changes our life, not necessarily our vibration leads to thinking, because science has told us, and this is kind of interesting, I love this, that the brain does not create anew. The brain recognizes that which it knows and creates structure around it. What the brain recognizes is frequency, because that's what the brain is filled with. So if we're trying to change our thoughts, we're changing the product of the brain. If we're trying to change our frequency, which is what the book is about and teaches us how to do, we're starting with changing what informs the brain, which is so much easier than changing the after effect. So for me, when I learned from Source that I could change my frequency, and the frequency that I changed informed the brain, and when I changed my frequency, the brain started to create open thoughts. It started to create expansive thoughts, versus when I was in fear, and that frequency informed the brain, and my thoughts and my actions were closed. So it's just exciting to be able to discover that it's changing our frequency changes our life, and changing our thoughts changes our life too, but it's just a lot tougher. So it's this whole idea of being able to have the conditioned body, the conditioned life completely shift and be blown wide open when we're starting to understand what our frequencies are, how they work, how we can connect to them, and how we can become aware as we walk through our life. So we know what frequency we're in so we can actually change it.
Yeah, and I think that's beautifully said. And to, it comes back to, even our language, our language, our words. So thoughts are things, and what those have their own, I believe, have their own frequency attached to them.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
when we voice our thoughts, and it's one thing, words are one thing, because communication, most of it's physical, 65% plus is physical communication, then tonality and tempo and all those things, and the words. And when you mix all of that up, the frequency, like you say, that comes with that
Mm-hmm.
really changes everything. And you used the word there about awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those quotes I love is, we can't change what we don't acknowledge, and it's becoming self-aware
Mm-hmm.
so that we can recognize
Mm-hmm.
when, like you say, what we're in fear. Because as you say in the book, you can't, be in a high frequency when you're in a low frequency.
Right. The third
You know,
dimensional world doesn't allow that.
yeah.
It
How does
doesn't.
love and fear work at the same time?
Right. It doesn't. It doesn't.
Right?
And so we're either in love or fear. And I want to go back to that piece of awareness because the book is written in a chronological order. Spirit, I didn't sit there and think about this. Once again, it's a channeled book, and I spoke it into my phone as it was given to me. And then years later, once I was able to type, it was written. But the organization of how they gave the material is in the book is how it was given to me. And the very first piece is awareness, because as you say, we need to know what state we're in order to know if we're in a state that serves our highest good and the highest good for all. And if we're not, then we need to shift that. So we call being aware as we move through our life, witnessing as we be. And there are practices given in the book that teach us how to do that, how to actually move into witnessing as we be, because it is not a practice. We are still all, even people who are long on a path, because this work that I've been teaching when people come, and many times this work attracts people already on a path who want to take their work more deeply. That's what embodying spiritual practices is deeper work. Even people on a path are still so vulnerable, I'll use that word, to the conditioning with all the work they do, because they're more focused very often on meditation or prayer or yoga as a practice outside of their daily life. So what we do with this work is we use our daily life. So walking and learning how to walk and witness as we be is a practice in and of itself. And that's where we start. And the book offers us techniques to do that.
Yeah, and I think, when we take a look at, the Western and the more current world, we get so busy being busy that we don't take the time to just witness the flowers, the animals, whatever it may be, to just take it in and be present in that way, because we're so busy thinking about what's next, what to do, what happened in the past, what we're anticipating for the future. So we're very rarely, and I know I've been there more than I care to admit, because we're not taking that time to just be. We're human beings, not human doings at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And there comes a point where I think, as you say in that book, to, the recognizing with awareness and the conditioning, and you also said something that I thought was really important is, our ability to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Do we choose our emotions? Do we choose, our response, or are we reacting? Are we making a conscious choice?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot of people out there who believe their emotions happen to them,
Yeah.
and it's from somebody outside of them. You made me feel,
Mm-hmm.
you know, where, I don't know if I can say it, but it's one of the tools in your book, the one of the questions, isn't it curious?
Well, it's a very, you've just shared once again such a big chunk of wonderful wisdom. Um, no one does anything to us. Everything that happens so that this soul that comes into the body has an opportunity to do the tweaking and perfecting where it needs to. So one of the most wonderful things I think about being an elder because I'm 69. I finally had to acknowledge I'm getting there, right? I'm still not there, but I'm getting there.
You're doing great for 69.
Thank you.
Great,
Thank you.
great work, Selina.
Thank you very much. I get to look at my life. I get to see where are the consistencies where things are more easeful and where are they more challenging. The places where they're more challenging are the places that where I've been given lots of third dimensional opportunities to respond from love to those challenges so that my soul can perfect itself. We are also given the opportunity as we come into form in what we call this human existence to learn how to respond to love, to all difficulties, because when we do that, we raise our personal vibration. So this whole idea that anybody does anything to us or that difficulty is meant to be difficult is what the book really challenges and offers new truths around. Because if we shift our perception of difficulty, not in our thinking mind, but through the actions we take in life, we are shifting our perception. We are also shifting our vibration. So when we move through life and have difficulty, it's very important that we have this opportunity to have practices and wouldn't it be curious, or isn't that curious, and wouldn't it be nice, are two phrases that are used and shared in the book as transformational tools, because we've talked about, you've mentioned, we in the physical world, we can't be in fear and in love. So one of the tools that we're given when we recognize through our witnessing as we be that we are not in high vibration and we choose to shift out of low vibration, is this wonderful phrase, wouldn't it be nice? Because in the moment of being in fear, that's where you are. But when you recognize that and you choose to respond in that moment to, well, wouldn't it be nice? Let's give an example. You're in traffic and you're feeling really good. You're comfortable. You're heading somewhere that you're about to enjoy and you're just feeling great. And in the next moment, someone comes along and cuts you off. You immediately go to fear because there's no room and you have to hit the brake and, oh my God, what happened? In that moment, most people give the other person the finger because it's the quickest way to express your fear, or they curse in the car and nobody can hear it but you. And Spirit tells us that the moment you are in is your next moment of creation. So in that moment of fear in the car, if you have read the book, if you have awareness that you can shift your state, you have choice, which is freedom, and you bring in this phrase of, oh, wouldn't it have been nice if that person had given me more time? Oh gosh, wouldn't it have been nice? Even if you've given them the finger, wouldn't it have been nice if I had the wherewithal to give somebody space and not go to fear and give them the finger? In that very moment of saying those words, because words carry frequency, you shift from low frequency to high. You immediately are shifted because those words shift you there. And so, yes, choice is freedom. And so what we learn in this book is we learn the different ways that we can move just like that from low frequency into high. And at each time we do that, and this is so important for everyone to know, each time we make that choice in our daily life to witness and to choose to shift and to witness and to choose to shift, we are increasing our personal vibration. We are bringing the energy of love into the physical world. Because when that soul came in, when that energy of light came into our physicality, we were given free will. And free will is very clearly, this is a universal law. This is one of the highest, holiest laws. The free will can be described very simply as choosing to invoke love at any moment of our life, choosing that high frequency energy or not. That's free will. And so each time we invoke that free will, we increase the vibrational core within us. The more we increase the core, the more opportunity we have to create a foundation for abundance, the more opportunity we have to hold whatever we are wishing to create. So choice isn't just in the moment to make us feel better. Changing our consciousness isn't just about wanting to be a better person or to live our spirituality. It's all about And the book, the purpose of the book, is a roadmap that teaches us how to go from a conditioned response of having our brain and our emotions guide the way to building a relationship with the intuitive body, the energy of love, the soul level. Each time we call on that soul level as a response to difficulty in the third dimensional world, what we're doing is we're bringing in the highest frequency of who we are as our guidance system, our personal GPS. And the more and more we do that, the stronger it becomes, and the more the ego is diminished in terms of having the fear, because we're conditioned to have fear be our guidance system, and it's actualized through our thoughts and through our emotions. So the whole purpose here is, over time, we are guided by our intuitive body. I am no longer and have no longer been guided by fear for the last 14 years. And my life is an expression of that. I've come out of a brain injury. I went from being financially affluent to claiming bankruptcy, and now on the verge of rebuilding my financial life and my personal life. I've gone from not being able to fry an egg to having a book out on the national market and being on a book tour and your show and in and out of Barnes and Noble all over the country. And that was done within 11 years because I responded from love to everything. And that now is my guidance system. So it's a very big process, but it's actualized beautifully through this book that you say is accessible, and through practices that we get to utilize. But that's the major purpose of what we're aiming for. We want to live. We want to live love.
Yeah, absolutely.
We want it to be our new normal.
I love it. But you had a word there that I love, and that's respond. Mm-hmm. Right? And that's that conscious choice to respond versus react. And something I learned many years ago, where, one of my teachers said, when you're conscious, you respond. When you're unconscious, you react. And which comes into conditioning. And it's something you kind of alluded to earlier, where the brain makes these connections where it's reference points. So it reacts. So this happened, do this. This happened, do this. So it's kind of like going back to see, when was the last time that happened? Oh, that happened 5 minutes ago. What did I do? I reacted. Oh, that happened 3 years ago. What did I do? I reacted. Or, there's this conditioned reaction that happens that is not about choice. Because what I've learned, and I'm sure you'll agree, is, first off, what we focus on expands. So if we focus on what's right, we get more of what's right. Right. And
what we put our attention on grows. Absolutely.
Exactly.
And yes. And you know what, Mark? It's not just responding, it's where we're responding from. So the conditioned response is absolutely react from fear. And fear is an energy. And when that energy is enacted, right, is engaged, the brain creates structure, and the structure are thoughts or emotions. So then the brain is creating from that conditioned response of fear. When we learn how to respond from love, the highest frequency, then the brain is energized by a different vibration. And then it creates different thoughts and different emotions. So it's not only react and respond, which is very important and true, and I thank you for that, but it's also, where are we responding from? If you're still responding from fear, you're going to still create fear. But if you notice it, this is where the awareness is. You're right, we're not aware people until we choose to be. Each time we take on this work of being aware and choosing to shift our frequency, as I said, our energy field increases, it becomes more and more and more our process. So we're creatures of habit. And so the more we do this, the more consistently we do this, the more progress we make. As you said, if I want to increase my bicep, I have to pick up those weights on the floor. If I just look at them, nothing happens. But if I use the weights, my muscle grows. And over time, my muscle grows enough for me to see it, but that muscle is still growing regardless of whether I see it. So when people take on this practice, the muscle of consciousness, which I believe is a muscle in my world, is growing. Each time we respond from love, that muscle grows. And suddenly, and I have had many students report this, the people, after they do this work for 6 months, for a year, for 2 years, suddenly The people that used to bother them, the situations that used to bother them, do not. I have a great ex-husband who was a wonderful dad, a very good man. We were not meant to be partners long term. He drove me crazy, absolutely drove me crazy. He's a very big personality. And now we have this incredible relationship. When he comes into a room and his personality is there, I see it now as shining, where before it was like, oh my God, here we go again. And it's because I've become more open and loving. It's because I see all of who he is, not just the part that triggers whatever my psychology was. So all of what happens in our life is the things that bothered us once no longer do, because we've changed us. And that goes back to what you shared before, which I think is so important, that nothing happens to us. This is the ultimate in accepting responsibility for our life stream here in this evolution, is really learning how to recognize what frequency we're in. And when we're in a frequency that doesn't serve our highest good and highest for all, we choose love as the response. And that sounds very broad, but what's so beautiful is the book breaks it down into specifics and teaches us what does that mean and how do we do it.
Yeah, brilliant. And I think, when we take a look at, the conditioning and the choice, it's about what we value. And I think that, in our innate being, love is the core, because it's what we all want. We all fear that if we're not enough, we won't be what? We won't be loved, So if we're not rich, not whatever. So it's that what we seek. So we need to also be that. So, it's accepting of people and things and situations. And for me, it's about non-judgment and seeking to understand and being open and, being curious. That's why I loved your question. Isn't it curious? And because we get to look within ourselves, where all of a sudden I find myself getting angry or frustrated. All of a sudden it's like, hang on a second. And I reflect back within me, because I know that that's me, that this is happening within. It's not necessarily outside. People can, if I wasn't in that situation with that person and it was someone else, I wouldn't have that same response or reaction or whatever that is. So it's about not giving away your power in those situations. And I think that that's really important, to own that and, take a look. And to me, it's part of life is growth. If you're not growing, they say you're dying, like most things in nature. But I think it's important to always continue to learn and grow and to be curious, because there's so much more. How can so many people have such, challenging stories? Like, take a look at the crazy things that go on in the world today and throughout history, and how some people overcome to huge, I don't want to say success and accomplishments, even though I just did, but they come out on the other side in a different way than people who kind of get stuck in there.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's, Viktor Frankl, you refer to in your book
My
as well.
favorite. Yep. Absolutely.
There's so much there. And if there's anything that I want to do, is I would just want to inspire people to, at the very least, be curious, how to have more joy, more peace, more happiness, more fun, more laughter, instead of being all so serious in the world, because whoever said life is serious at the end of the day, right?
Well, certainly. And I love what you said about owning your power. For me, love is my power, and I want to own that. You spoke of how important it is that all of us want to be loved, and that's what we seek. That love is within us. I think we all seek to reconnect and to be the love that we are. That energy is in us, waiting to be awakened. And Spirit has said to me over and over and over again, the way we awaken is to and reconnect, because we live in a third dimensional world. This soul came in as ether into a physical form in a very dense physical world. The way we reconnect to the divine within us is by using our physical world, our daily life, which gives us so many opportunities of challenges and difficulties and craziness, it gives us so many opportunities to reconnect to that. Because if each time we reconnect, each time something difficult happens, we choose to reconnect and to acknowledge and actualize and access that frequency of love within us through the practices that are shared in the book, we become that in the moment. What we inhabit, we become. What we put our energy on grows. So each time we respond to love, from the vibration of love in an actual physical example of what that looks like in the third dimensional world, when we engage that as our response to difficulty, we become that. So there's no better way to become the love we want. And so many people are looking for it externally. You're right. There's no reason not to have loving relationships. We want that. But most of those people don't have the connection with the love that is within them. And that's what we're looking to grow with this work. You know, it's been said by in psychology all over the place, you want a loving relationship with another, be that for yourself. Well, it's not just be that to others, it's activate that within yourself as your response, as your guidance system. Because when love goes from being a heart that we draw on the paper or the end of our signature on an email and actually becomes the energy we access as our response to difficulty, wow, that our life changes. One last thing I want to share about that, if I might. Spirit has said, your next moment is always created from the moment before. The energy in the moment before creates your next moment. So in that car, when we're fine and that person comes along and cuts us off and we're not so fine, right? We're not so fine. If we have the wherewithal, if we have the consciousness to say, oh my goodness, drive safely, go head off. Wow, what a close call. So glad I'm in a very comfortable car. I'm glad I have time. I'm glad I have consciousness and I can bless this person. We're creating our next moment in that higher frequency. But if we give them the finger, if we curse at them, that moment happens, we create a response from that same vibration of low vibration. We're creating our next moment from that low vibration. So when we talk about freedom and choice, it's not just we're choosing to respond because we want to be good doobies or because we want to deepen our practice. No, we're choosing to respond from love because we want to create our next moment from that high frequency energy. We want to be that in the world. And with our world in such crazy chaos these days, people come here all the time and they ask me, Selina, what can I do? How can I contribute to a better world? I always say, what are you doing in your life? Where's your consciousness? How are you responding to difficulty? Where are you creating that chaos? Where are you creating it for yourself and for us? Because this work that we do, because we are all in the field of oneness, the work I do for me is the work I do for all. The work you do here on your podcast, work you do for all. Work you do in your life, work you do for all. So not only do we do this for us, and it's not only for our highest good, but it is truly for the highest good of all. So forgive me, I get so excited about this and spirit just comes in and starts talking through me. It's like,
oh,
whoa.
I know. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours because we're so such kindred spirits in that sense. And you know, it just got me thinking your example of the car and giving someone the bird or whatever. It's, you know, I think the important thing too is because I've been there, I used to be a traveling sales rep. I spent tons of time on the road, you know, and it was part of my journey to just accept it. And it made life a lot easier. You know, like it felt better to just be like, be patient in traffic for example, because when you get yourself all worked up and doing those things, not only is it that you know the vibration you're in that, as you say, creates the next, it's that how you feel in your body, you know, like your body, it's because you're frustrated, you're angry, you're not breathing properly, and you talk about the power of breath in your book so much that it's just one of those things that if, you know, I want people to take a moment and think about, like, when you give people the grace to cut in front or anything like that, to notice how it feels in your body versus when you want to react and get all freaked out because they cut you off or jumped in or whatever that is. And that's where it took my thinking. And I think it's a great real world example because so many of us can relate how traffic can be so, you know, triggering in that sense. Though, we are running to the end of our time, Selena, and I want to thank you, for putting out the book and channeling that through your, what some might think is your challenges or hardships, but it what actually became probably a great gift,
Yes.
obviously. And I recommend anyone who's on the path and curious and looking for tools for transformation, change, and raising your frequency so you can transform your life, just like the title of the book. And it's like how to respond with love to life's difficulties, and read the book and it'll change your life. I've gone through a lot of stuff in my own growth, and I found myself using it as I was reading it in some of the things I'm dealing with in my personal life as well. And I found it very refreshing. It was a pleasant read, a simple read. I didn't have to get all brainiac and go back and read pages 5 times to get it all. And there were practices I was able to, use right now in the moment. So well done, great book, and I just thank you for the work that you're doing, and your attitude, you glow, you're beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mark. It really is a workbook, and I encourage everybody treat it as a workbook. As Mark's doing, use the practices because it's really meant to be used. And it can be a divination tool down the line, but for now, use it as a workbook and keep it because things will change for you vibrationally and it will meet you wherever you find it.
Perfect. Well, and tell people how they can get a hold of you, where they can learn more, where they can get your book.
Yeah, the book is everywhere. It's on Amazon. I'm all over. I'm on a book tour now going around the country at Barnes and Noble. I just came back from Minneapolis. I have 7 or 8 places here in New England this summer. Then I'm hitting the road nationally in the fall.
Well, if
My
you ever
web
come to Vancouver, let us know.
Well, I love Vancouver. It's one of my favorite places, and it is on my list because I have friends there, and I will definitely be in Vancouver, and I will look you up. But
Yep,
people can
definitely.
come to my website, which is Practical Spirituality with Selina, all one word. Selina is
Oh, what just
Selina.
happened there? Oh, we just lost you for a second.
Okay.
You're back.
So,
People can come to
yes,
your website. Yep.
yes, Practical Spirituality with Selina, Selina.com. One word. There's information there. And if you're interested in finding out about personal teaching, one-on-one teaching, I do take students on selectively, and just reach out and say, I want to learn more. And we'll do a no fee info call. So that would be Selina at selinamaitreya.com. And then I'm on Facebook and I'm on lots on YouTube, a lot of instructional videos on YouTube as well.
You're easy to find.
Easy to find all over.
Beautiful. Well, Selina, thank you again so much for taking time out of your day to join us and sharing your work. You're obviously passionate about it, and it's just something that I really resonate with. So I was very much looking forward to our conversation today. So thank you for that. Absolutely. And I just
Thank
want to
you.
thank our,
Can I just
yes.
interrupt for a sec? Thank you. I want to thank you for all the work that you do for providing us with all of this. That's all. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. It's, if we can do anything to help change the world, one person at a time, masses, we want people to have the tools so that they can, live a life of joy, bliss, harmony, fun, excitement, laughter, and not be in those lower frequencies. We want the high frequencies where all the fun's at. So thank you so much for the work you do. My name is Marc Caron. You've been listening to Conscious Living on 100.5 FM CFRO in Vancouver. Until next time, take care of each other. Bye for now.